Hi, Andrew.
Hi, how are you?
How's it going?
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much for having me. Awesome. It's an awesome day. How are you?
I'm good. It's the best part of the day for me that I just get to do this live, and then after this, it's bedtime. So it's my favorite.
Okay, that's a good one. Good, good.
And thank you so much for reaching out to us so that we could share your wealth of knowledge with our viewers.
Yeah,
We love it.
yes, yes.
I'm just trying to pull up the questions. I got some questions for you from some of our minds, things that we thought persons who are looking to join employment or to gain employment um, would like to know. So while I get this pulled up for you, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm a very down-to-earth person. I've been in HR, particularly recruitment and learning and development, for quite some time, over 8 years, with international experience. Um, I actually discovered my career by accident, if that can happen. If
I've been
you know,
hearing that a lot.
yes, 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 yes. It was a church member who many, many years ago suggested that I need to enter a field in HR because it has to do with a lot of people skills. And he thought at the time that I had a lot of people skills, and I took him upon his word and started researching. Um, so my first stint was actually with a HR company, particularly focused on software. So talent management softwares. I'm not sure if you know Success Factors, Talent Plus. So that's where the interest started to grow. Then I branched off into learning and development and recruitment. I've recruited for a number of companies in the BPO space, bank, financial services, in Grand Cayman, in hospitality, you name it, manufacturing. And I just love helping people.
I love that. So you recruited for a lot of different fields, so they're very diverse. What do you
Yeah.
see that's similar to all of them that you've observed?
So what, in terms of what the employers
They're
are
looking
looking
for
for,
from the, yeah.
exactly, exactly. So in terms of what the employers are looking for, is always soft skills. Soft skills, would always outdo your technical or even your qualifications. So once you present yourself as somebody who is, who is compassionate, you're willing and be able to navigate challenges, and you have a positive attitude and a mindset to learn, then an employer will always find that more attractive than anything else.
I agree because I think with every single occupation, you have to be able to communicate with others. And if you don't have that personal touch to it, it definitely changes everything.
It does, it does.
All right, so another question that I got earlier was what are some of the questions that we should ask, especially now that COVID has changed the way we apply for jobs, or the things that we need to know for jobs that we're getting committed to? What are some of the
Mhm.
questions that you believe are the best questions for these persons to ask?
Okay, good. That's a good one. And before I even answer that question, I would like to say to that person or whoever asked that question, first you have to think about your motivation and what you are passionate about, because that's how the questions will come about. You have people who, even though COVID is creating havoc, people just don't care. But you have those who are really serious and really want to know how employers are showing up to this pandemic. So if if you have settled on that, what you need to ask is how your company is going to put practices and put policies in place to ensure that the team members, staff are safe. You can ask the question about flexibility. Before, Jamaica wasn't so given to working from home, etc. Exactly. You know, you want to ask that question as well. And so many others, but those are two main questions going in an interview now you can ask.
Okay, absolutely. Especially now when we're mostly concerned about safety and, well, you want to, I don't think when when our country was creating laws for employment, they really considered family life. So I think that's one of the things that is most important now to most persons. So how do I formulate then a question like that to a prospective employer?
Mm-hmm. And the question is relating to family life, you're saying?
Right, and what benefits then that I get from this job? Or I want to know what benefits the job will give me that will benefit my family life or my growing family life. So how can I structure that question for a prospective employer?
Okay, awesome. Okay, good. So what you want to do in particular is that you can ask the question in this particular way by asking, letting the recruiter know or the hiring manager know that, you're a young family and you're looking for how this company will, as you've mentioned, help you grow in other areas. So you want to phrase your question like this: given the current situation with coronavirus, etc., how will you, as an employer, assist me in ensuring that my family obligations are met?
I love that. Absolutely love that. All right. Another one that I feel like most persons are afraid to ask. In the Jamaican culture, we don't love to talk about money. I don't know why. I like to talk about money. So I want to know too, how can they build that confidence to say, hey, what is your payment structure like? Or is there a way to earn more than you're currently offering? Like, I don't know if they would know that going in, especially if they're a first-time employee.
Exactly, and that you have to tread that carefully, because if you ask the question too early, the interviewer can perceive that you're all about the money and they screen you out immediately. And if you ask, I'm sorry?
Aren't we though? Like, in my head, I feel like if I'm coming to look for a job, I'm definitely interested in how much you're paying. So
yes, you are. Yes, you are. But it when you ask it too early, you strike the recruiter on the wrong hand, if there is such a term. You give the impression that it's all about the money. So you want to find the sweet spot. What you want to do is to first off clarify and showcase your value. When you go in from that angle and you've had a really solid and profound conversation, then the recruiter will feel as though, she's serious, he's serious, let's have this conversation. So you don't want to start immediately. If, depending on the position, you're going to be having more than one interviews, maybe 3 interviews. You want to, if there's going to be a second interview, that's when you want to ask your salary question as well. Go ahead. I see you're trying to ask another question.
I was actually going to Conrad's comment. He says yes, cannot jump in too early with that question. It's almost like you're shooting yourself in the foot. Absolutely.
Exactly. You are correct. You'll shoot yourself in the foot, and they would screen you out.
Right.
You always, exactly. You also want to always give a range. So think about the least amount of salary that you want to go home with, and give a range. Also do your research. There's something that we call the benchmark salary, that if you do research, you would realize that the industry is paying X. And so based on that, that can guide you in terms of what salary you need to ask for.
Right. All right, I love that answer. All right, so another question. Well, this one is on the topic of salary discussions as well. It says, from an HR standpoint, I realize persons are apprehensive when asked about salary expectations. So, how can a potential candidate present what they are expecting comfortably?
Okay. All right. Yes. I've been asked quite a lot of time to assist with salary negotiations, me being the middleman. So you can comfortably ask the recruiter, given, and especially if the employee is very attractive and you really want to work for the employer, you can, again, go with a range and have an open discussion. Once you give that range, do let the recruiter know that based on certain, information that you've discovered, you're very much interested in the organization, and so you are open to having another salary negotiation if it comes to that. So you give them your range, but then still let them know that you're not hard bent on it, because a lot of them, again, will screen you out if they think that you just want $50 and it's $50 and that's it. So you give them your range and then let them know that you are open to negotiations. One thing about salary negotiations as well is that people never realize that if you're not getting the actual salary, you can negotiate something else. You can negotiate an extra vacation week. You can negotiate extra traveling allowances. You can negotiate health benefits as well. Not necessarily the hard take-home cash.
I love that you mentioned first that the employee needs to figure out first what is important to them, because I feel like everything comes back to that initial knowing of what's important to them. So when you tied it just now, absolutely amazing. Conroy was just clarifying that by attractive you meant the job. Thank you, Conroy. I appreciate that. All right, so another question is the phrase "and any other duties that you are called upon to perform" appears in most job descriptions. How can a potential candidate get some insights prior to being hired into these other duties? When should it be discussed?
It should be discussed I think on the very first interview. You will find that a lot of recruiters are different. We're all individuals. And what I believe a recruiter should do, another recruiter say, hey, I don't believe that. So we are individuals and we hire differently. But I would suggest to a job seeker to make sure that you clarify and understand all the job requirements, because in fact, that would lead into your salary negotiations, etc. And ask them specifically, what are other areas that you feel I will be called upon to assist in. If you can't ask that question in that way, you refer back to the previous employee that was in the position. What are some duties that are not listed in the job description that the previous employee was responsible for? And they'll tell you.
That's good. All right, so most times when you're applying for the job, or I've met persons who are applying for a position that they've never met anyone who has done that particular job before. How can they do research, or how can they get more information then of what are some of the roles that they'll be required to perform in that position?
Love this question. Love this question. What is not popular in Jamaica is what we call informational interviews. This is where the potential job seeker will date his or her employer. So you take up the phone and you would call your employer, find out who the hiring manager is or whatever, and let them know that you are very much interested in this particular position or organization. You know that they don't have an opening at the moment. However, you want to learn about the company and about this particular role. Would it be okay to schedule just a 15-minute discussion with you for you to just share with me some information regarding this role, this organization? If you've done that, let me tell you, we call that informational interviews. A lot of people don't do that. Very popular in America, very popular in the UK, not very popular in the Caribbean. But this is something that you want to do, and you will stand out from everybody else.
I love that. We definitely need to introduce that because I've never even heard of it. All right.
Yeah.
We have another question from Olivia. How important is it to look for a job that offers benefits, for example, health insurance?
Oh, wow. That's a given. Very important, especially when COVID is there. You're going to be needing that. And again, some of the companies have to ensure that they offer that. It's a basic fringe benefit that all employers need to have. Give or take, the little man who doesn't have the budget to offer that. But nonetheless, these are some things that you can talk about during your interview as well.
Okay. So this is this one of the questions that is too early to ask, or do you ask it on one of those second interviews as well?
Not very early to ask. In fact, usually, if you realize that usually companies tend to list the fringe benefit. In most of the job descriptions, it tends to be listed: health insurance, traveling allowances, etc. The only thing that they really don't want to list is usually the salary information, but things like that they tend to list. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, guys, be sure to include your questions in the comments. I'm just reading the questions that I got already. So if you have additional questions, feel free to add them in the comment section. All right. So another question is, how important or effective do you consider internships in preparing me for a job after graduation?
Very important. Very important. A lot of people continue to say, well, recent graduates, that they do not have experience and the employers don't want to hire them. If you don't hire me, how am I going to get the experience? Yes? So I would say that it is very important. I don't classify internship as internship when I'm doing a resume writing. Actually, if I have a client who doesn't have experience, I classify that area as passion projects.
Oh, wow.
Projects that you're very, very passionate about, and you leverage that experience. So you won't be necessarily going and putting on your resume that you did internship here. We want to highlight your passion and yes, some projects that you've been involved in. A lot of people and recent graduates, they think that because I interned here or I did this, it's not valuable or credible experience. That's not the case. In fact, you have to just build out exactly what you've been exposed to and what your internship looked like, and sell that to the hiring manager.
I've actually never added any of my volunteering. Conroy's adding as well, volunteering as well.
Yes.
Most persons don't, well, I don't want to speak for most persons. I didn't know how to add that to a resume. So for example, I don't want to write, under the skills section, I don't want to write, oh, I volunteer to feed homeless persons. I usually wonder how that would benefit what they're asking for as a part of the requirement. So basically I write the skills that they would need as part of the requirement. Yeah. So how now do I leverage my skills and my passions to make it accommodating to the requirements that they have.
And so, first of all, you can't lie on the resume. So if you don't have the skill, you just don't have it.
Right.
You know, but if you have the skill sets, if you realize that everybody's using internship, everybody's using the word volunteerism, everybody's doing that. Nobody's using passion projects.
Right.
You know, so it is all about how you are showing up on your resume. And what you want to do is to clearly list everything that you've been involved. Well, not everything, anything that is relating to the position that you are applying to. And it shouldn't be anything that is easily identifiable. So for instance, you are in PR, you know, volunteering as a PR, or your internship PR consultant. We know that mainly it's going to be about communications, etc., etc. So we already from the title understand that what the job is. What we want to see are some things that are totally different, that make you stand out from everybody else. You know,
Right.
Tell us about results. Tell us about results, because we already know what the position entails. So tell us about results, basically.
Right. Conroy's adding, they would look at it as you being able to work with their other projects, and most companies have that outreach arm. Okay. All right. So that was very insightful for me. I learned a lot just now, because I've never added it, because it's like, how does that benefit you as a company? Like, there was no way to translate that skill. So I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So Melanin Rush asks, what are some keywords that should be on a resume? Love that.
Okay, so keywords is very important. There's what we call an ATS, an applicant tracking system. Applicant tracking system is not very popular in Jamaica. However, a lot of large organizations tend to use applicant tracking system if they have a lot of hiring to do. So take, for instance, maybe Sagicor, the BPO industry. They might have, don't quote me, but they might have an applicant tracking system because of the number of applications they're getting. Now, what you need to do, if that's the case, is that your resume needs to be optimized with keywords, with specific skills that you have for the position. Your resume needs also to be very different. So if you're applying for an admin role, you need to be looking for skill sets and lists and keywords and list them as it relates to that position. There's so many, so I can't list them,
Right.
list them, but that's what you want to do.
I remember, all right, so I work with a BPO, so most times I'm reviewing applicants too. So some of the things that we look for are like we actually want to hear them talk, right?
Yes.
So how can we basically make myself stand out when these companies are getting so many applications? How can I, in person, after you've seen my resume, you've called me for an interview, how can I make myself stand out even more at that face-to-face, well, might not be face-to-face anymore,
Yes.
level?
Okay, you need to possess what I call executive presence. I call it the oomph in the corporate world. you need to have some oomph about yourself, right?
Right.
It's what we call, when we're talking about executive charisma and executive presence, we call it graffitas, right? It is how you carry yourself. It is how you show up in the interview. It is how you dress. It is how you speak. It is how you greet everybody else around you. It's also, a lot of people don't know, it is also the grace that you walk with around you when you go in the interview. I've been on many interviews, and when a particular candidate would walk in, I'm like, who's that candidate? My opportunity, I'm done for, just by how they walk in the room. not boastful, not showing off, but how they carry themselves.
Right.
So I could go on in so many areas to tell you about how you need to carry yourself. And in fact, if you walk with this grace around you and this charisma, even if the recruiter doesn't have a position for you and you don't fit that position, they love you so much that they would go and create a position for you. I've seen it happen.
Wow. Okay. All right, guys. That one. If you don't get anything else from this live today, that was it. So yeah, Conrad just said grace and presence. I love that. All right, so I got
Yeah.
some more questions just now, so I'll just bench mine for now. Kiana Edwards is asking, sorry. All right, so the question is, how would you format a resume as a high school student? Also, do you think it's beneficial to create a LinkedIn profile? Wow, love that.
Oh boy, LinkedIn is my baby. But let's go back. Let's talk about the resume first.
Right.
High school student, you would not have had a lot of experience, so you can easily have a one-pager. For you, you won't also have a lot of substance, to be quite frank, because you're just leaving. And when I say substance, I'm referring to experience.
Right.
So you would want to make sure that your resume looks really well, looks attractive, by just one page, only one page. You don't need more than that because you're at high school. List your CXC results or education first, because that's your strength. If you volunteered, then and you feel that that has a stronger selling point, you want to list that first. Take off this references available upon request. Particularly, I do not like it. I think it wastes my time. Take it off. Take off available references available upon request. Put them on it. Call the references before and list them. It saves the recruiter a lot of time. ditch the objective. I do not like objectives as well, and that is why initially I said to you that recruiters are individuals and they all have their likes and dislikes. I personally think that objectives are very selfish. It's all about what I want, and not necessarily what you will offer to the company. So I always tell people, ditch it, take it off. Once you have more than 5 years experience, it's no longer an objective, it's now a profile, and the summary, I call it your career chronicle, and you chronicle your experience there, basically. So ditch that and list out your skill sets and your education, if that makes sense. Does it make any sense?
It definitely does. So
Okay.
instead of summarizing then what you offer, state how you can benefit this company. Or
Exactly.
Instead of asking, okay, once you contact me, I can tell you my references, give them the information, let them reach out and confirm your character.
Exactly.
So I love that. So it's very clear how to upgrade that resume so that it's appetizing for recruiters and persons who are looking to employ you.
Exactly.
All right, so the next part was how effective or beneficial that LinkedIn profile is.
Let me tell you something. LinkedIn is awesome. In March of this year, Jamaica had over 470,000 professionals on LinkedIn.
Wow.
And that number has increased to over 500,000, I can assume now. Jamaica is the #1 leading Caribbean island for LinkedIn users, right? So we're leading the Caribbean with over 500,000 people. It's for professionals. I can tell you that I've won a lot of contracts, a lot of business contracts, and people phoned me through LinkedIn. Recruiters are there. 90%, well, I won't be too elaborate now, but a lot of recruiters are there. And the reason why recruiters are showing up on LinkedIn It's because of the space. It's because of what it was meant for. It is very professional. It is very supportive, right? It is about supporting someone. It's about career. It's about business, etc. So that is why you find a lot of business professionals going there. Job seekers need to hang out where recruiters are hanging out.
Sounds like the hangout spot for you.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so that's definitely beneficial. Hope that was able to answer your question, Kiana. All right, so Olivia is asking, should I edit my resume and experience to fix it on one page? So a lot of persons are concerned about the bulkiness of a resume. So Olivia is asking if one page it will suffice, or should she get it to one page?
One page should be good if you are not omitting anything that is critically important. You don't want to have a jumbled resume, and I don't want to sell you the idea that you must have a one-page resume. I've had clients who've had 3 pages, and we tried 2, and it just didn't work. We have to go to 3, because if we move it to 2, then we are going to be omitting critical and important information. So think about what's critical, what's important to you. And once you've identified that, then you can narrow your resume. Remove the fluff, though. A lot of times it's filled with a lot of fluff. As well as you don't want to tell the recruiter everything. You want solid points on your resume. So when you go in the interview, you have a conversation, right? And you can share something that the recruiter doesn't know, you know?
Okay. All right. So I definitely love that answer, because I feel like persons are always telling you shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 pages. So as long as the critical information is there, we're good. All right.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. The next one I have, guys, please continue to submit your question. I love the questions we're getting so far.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So can we ask about the company's opportunity for growth once you're applying for a position?
Definitely. Oh, yes, absolutely. But don't just ask it blindly and bland, because job seekers tend to do that. And they'd ask, what are the opportunities for growth? Okay. And sometimes the recruiter, is like, if I hear this question one more time, I slap you.
Oh my
gosh. So you can ask, you can frame the question differently. How can I build out my career from this position that I'm going to occupy? And immediately the recruiter will understand what you're saying. You said build out. Again, it's different, it's fresh, nobody's using it. You're creating an impression that you have done your research and you are willing and ready to for this role.
I love that. Again, standing out. All the applicants are asking that. It will make you definitely stand out. All right. So another one that I got was, I think I forgot it. So it stemmed from opportunities for growth. I'm sorry, just slipped my mind.
Okay.
Okay. So when they always tell you before an interview that you should do your research. What exactly should we be researching, especially with a lot of the roles or the duties for this role are not listed? What exactly are these persons researching, or what should we be looking for about these companies?
Okay, good question. So there are some things that you want to be looking for, and you need to be very mindful of it. One, you need to look out for the culture of the company. A lot of times people go into a particular company, they leave within 3-4 weeks, months, depending on the role, simply because the culture is not what they like. I've done it before. I left a job that was paying me a lot of money simply because the culture and we were just clashing and we didn't stand for the same thing, and I have to leave. So you can ask current employees, what it's like there. You know, you can also call the company if the job description is not listed and ask them, because if you don't do research in terms of that, then you will not know what questions to ask. So you can call the receptionist, ask the receptionist, you've advertised this role, but the job description is not there. I'm just asking, can you direct me to the right person so I can get some information before I submit my application?
Okay.
You know, things like when was the company formed and who is the CEO? I mean, those are fine, but those are entry level. Those are
Because
entry level
they're
research.
not going to test your knowledge of the company on the interview. Like, yes, it's good to know where you're going to work, but knowing the CEO is not really going to make you stand out.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, so I love that you mentioned knowing the culture. Some persons, all right, so if I'm in a company and I want you to to apply to this place, I'm going to tell you that it's good. How can you determine for yourself then if that's something, or that's the best or the most credible information? Especially again, if you don't know someone in that role before, what are some other ways that employees can go about getting more information about the company and the culture and the expectations overall?
Awesome question. What you can do is to benchmark the reviews. And benchmarking the reviews, I mean, by not just asking one person, but discreetly ask a few people. Check for reviews on social media, the internet, etc. Also look up the big man, the boss. Who's the boss? And dig out and find out about the boss, because usually the culture tends to stem from the man at the top.
Right.
So if you want to get an idea into the culture, then dig up the person, you know, go on social media, find out the person, you know, and LinkedIn as well. And you will get an idea to the person, you know.
Okay. All right. I love that. All right. So my last question, or this is the last question I had written down. What are some of the questions? I feel like I just asked that one. What are some of the questions that are important to ask? Not necessarily right away or once you get the first interview, but just so that you can know that you're making the right choice with that company. Especially if you're uprooting your life from somewhere else and you want to know if this is somewhere where you're able to basically start life or start your career. What are some of the questions that you think, especially a first-time employee, should ask?
Okay. You can ask, how are you going to assist me? Or how can this organization assist me on my career journey? So that's one question. If you're brand new and you need help with going back to school, ask them about their educational grants program. If you are passionate about social responsibility and giving back, ask them about that. You know, so again, it all goes back to what you are passionate about, and then you frame those questions accordingly. There's so many questions that we could think of. Now, another question that, go ahead.
No, continue. I was just reading the next question that came up.
Okay, okay. Another question that you can ask, a lot of people tend to want to find out, did I do well in the interview? You know, are they going to call me back? Did I mess it up? What's happening? What's going to happen? So this is a particular question I loved, and usually I tend to ask it when I was doing interviews for roles, and they'd be always like, smart question. How I would suggest to the recruiter or ask the recruiter, given the role and given the skill sets that you are looking for, how does my skill set and my experience match up to the ideal candidate? And let me tell you, when you ask that, listen carefully, because they will tell you that, you know what, this area was good, and that area, you answered this correctly, you didn't answer that correctly. And then you get an opportunity to clarify.
Right.
So once a recruiter comes back to you and say, you know, we thought that this particular area you did exceptionally well, etc., etc. But, you know, when they said the but and they start to mention, you said, just to clarify, X, 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 X. And you use that to clarify.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love that. I've
also,
actually never asked that question before, but I'm definitely adding that to my think tank. All right.
exactly.
So how does my resume and my skill set measure up to the ideal candidate? Was that the question?
Yes, given the role, and I mean, you can phrase it whichever you want, but basically, it's about finding out from the recruiter how your skill set and how you've answered the question or the questions are matching up or is matching up to the ideal candidate for the role.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I'm definitely adding that one. I hope other persons are taking notes on these as well. All right. Ken is asking, in regards to personal brand, what are some mistakes people make and how do you avoid them?
For personal branding, oh boy, listen, I'm having HR conversations on Wednesday, and we have a personal stylist from Canada, and she'll be talking about how you can elevate your personal brand with style, because including me, a lot of times I get it incorrect.
Okay.
Your personal brand is what you are known for, though, is how people perceive you, right? And so from the way you look, from the way you sound, your modus operandi, how you carry yourself, that is all of it comes into your brand. A lot of times people tend to believe that they can separate themselves. Like in particular, when they're working, they can be one person, and when they're not working, they can be another person. It's very difficult to separate the two. You need to show up consistently. In other words, so one negative is that the inconsistency. So we should always ensure that we're showing up consistently, if that makes sense. Did I answer the question?
All right. So, Ken, let us know if that answer was good. All right. I like that answer
Exactly.
too. So as long as you're consistent with how you show up, your personal brand should be good. All right, so
Exactly.
I love these answers. I'm so grateful that we're saving this to our YouTube channel. So persons who didn't get to join our live today will be able to rewatch and gain information on how to show up for their next job. I want to thank you, Andrew, for your time. I truly, truly appreciate you. And
Very
for
welcome.
sharing so much knowledge. I honestly didn't know that I could add my volunteering to my resume. So I'll definitely be sprucing up my resume soon. For
Awesome.
persons who want to, or persons who are looking for jobs, or they just want to get more information, Kiana says that was a good response. Thank you. So for persons who they're looking for employment, friends who probably want to change jobs, you can always send them to Talent Box. Is it Talent Box Jamaica, or the handle? Sorry, is Talent Box, right?
Talent Box Jamaica. Talent Box Jamaica.
All right. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about how we can find you, how we can get more information. If we want help with our resume, if you have any tips. I know that you have a live on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Awesome. So they can reach me at Talent Box Jamaica on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. and on LinkedIn as well, or they can connect with me personally on LinkedIn. I love connections. So they can connect with me at Andrew K. Fairman, or on, I think, Instagram at the Recruitment Tycoon, on Instagram, if they want to follow me. Usually I do share a lot of tips as well as job opportunities as well. So they can follow me for those, or they can call 876 575 3298.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
The last thing before you go, Melanin Rush is asking, should CSEC be added to the resume?
Definitely. If you do not have anything more than CSEC added, what I find is that those with a diploma or degrees tend to list, some of them would list their CXCs. You don't need to list it. If that's your highest level, you list it. However, once you've moved on to your diploma or your degree, then you need to remove that because it doesn't have any value anymore.
Okay. All right. I hope that was helpful for you, Melanin Rush. Thank you again, Andrew. It was a pleasure having this conversation, honestly. So,
Awesome.
guys, we'll be saving this to our YouTube channel, Minds of Jamaica YouTube channel. And you can always go to theminds.com if you're looking for a mentor. You can always follow Andrew on his socials so that you'll be able to get more tips and get jobs if you're looking for jobs as well. So thank you, and thank you guys for tuning in. We absolutely appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye.
All right. Bye.